In this video, I'll be sharing how I make my fresh milled whole wheat pizza dough. The full written recipe will be in the description below the video. So Friday nights are pizza night in my household, and we typically do 4 14-inch pizzas. But in this video, I'm going to give the measurements for one 14-inch pizza. So start by measuring out your wheat berries, and you'll need 275 grams or about 1.5 cups of hard white wheat berries. While that's milling, add 206 grams of water to your mixer bowl, or 3/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons, 4 grams or 1 teaspoon of olive oil, 14 grams or 1 tablespoon of honey, and then add in your milled flour. Again, I am quadrupling the recipe to make 4 14-inch crusts, so if it looks like I have a lot more ingredients, that's why. I'm purposely leaving out the salt and the yeast. Now that everything is in the mixer bowl, I'm going to mix for about 3 to 5 minutes until all of the flour is fully incorporated. Once the flour is fully incorporated, we're going to let this sit and rest for about 20 minutes. And the purpose of this is to give the flour some time to absorb the liquids. This allows for better gluten development. I've noticed that most fresh milled flour recipes will leave just the yeast out. I like to leave out the yeast and the salt for the resting step, because I've noticed that once the yeast is added in, it really tightens the gluten structure, and it really just makes the dough come together nicely when adding in the salt and the yeast after the rest. I covered my mixer with a damp cloth to let it rest for the 20 minutes. While the dough rested, I've measured out my yeast and my salt. 1 teaspoon of yeast and 1 teaspoon of salt. The 20 minutes is now up. I'm adding in my salt and my yeast, and I'm going to begin to knead on speed 2 for about 8 to 10 minutes. Sometimes I get asked if I do the window pane test, and the answer is sometimes I do, but usually I don't. As you can see, the way the dough progresses, you can tell once the gluten is well developed just by how nice and smooth the dough gets, and you'll see that through the progression of this kneading process. Now that the dough is done kneading, I'm removing the dough hook, and usually I would let it rise in my mixer bowl, but I think on this particular day I was going to be using my mixer for something else. So I'm taking my dough out of the mixer bowl, and I'm gonna put it into a lightly oiled container for it to rise. I do like these clear containers because I'm able to easily mark the level of the dough, which makes it a lot easier to tell once the dough has doubled. As you can see here, I am just doing what is called a slap and fold. This is completely unnecessary, and it's just me wanting my dough to look like a nice neat ball when it goes into the bowl, but this is really not necessary at all. Now I'm getting it into that clear container, and I just lightly flatten it and spray the top of the dough. That way it doesn't get dried out, and I can also see a clear line, so I know once it's doubled. That's why I flatten it down. So on this particular day, I started the dough the day before I was going to make pizza. So I put it into the clear container, and I just stuck it straight into the fridge, and it doubled in size. So I went ahead and punched it down that night before I went to bed and just stuck it back in the fridge. But if you are making this on the same day, then you're just going to let it double in size and then punch it down and continue on to this step here where I am weighing out each pizza dough. Or if you're just making a single pizza dough, then there's no need to weigh it. Now, if you are making more than one pizza dough, it's not 100% necessary to weigh the dough. I just like to do that to ensure that I have 4 equal pizza crusts. My dough is straight from the fridge. I did not let it come to room temp before punching it down and and dividing it. But again, if you're doing this same day, then your dough will already be room temperature. I chose to do my dough the day before, not because it does anything special for the recipe, but just simply because we were going to have a busy Friday. And so I wanted to get a head start and already have the dough prepped and ready to go so that all I have to do is shape it. Now that I have my equal portions, I am turning each portion into a nice, neat circle. Keeping it nice and neat like this is going to make it a breeze for when it's time to flatten out our pizza doughs. Keep in mind that my pizza dough, again, is straight from the fridge, so it is cold, so that is why it looks a bit more stiff than usual. That strap that keeps dangling is actually from my baby carrier. I'm usually wearing my newborn in all of these videos, so if you ever see it, that's what it is. Now that I have my pizza dough balls, I'm going to get a pan and lightly spray it with oil, and I just let it rest in the pan. If your dough is room temperature, let it rest for about 30 minutes. That just helps it to be able to be flattened out a lot easier. If your dough is cold, let it rest for about 1 hour to an hour and a half. On this day, I got busy and mine sat for about 2 hours, but it still came out wonderfully. Now it's time to assemble our pizza. I'm just going to do one pizza, even though we're having 4. I let my children do the other 3 pizza because they were really excited to help this day. I'm using a 14-inch cast iron pizza pan, and I just gently pick up the dough and put it right in the middle of the pan. I oiled my cast iron, and I'm also oiling the top of the pizza dough as well. And I just take my hand starting in the center of the dough and push outwards gently to make sure that I don't rip or tear the dough. And I just continue to press until the dough reaches the edges of the pan. I'm being mindful not to press too hard. I don't want to poke any holes in the dough, and I also don't want it to be uneven. I'm just lightly pressing so that I have a nice even dough. Now that it's flattened, I'm taking my pizza sauce and I'm spreading mine around the whole pizza all the way to the edge because most of my kids do not like pizza crust, and so I'm spreading mine over the whole pizza. But if you do like crust, go ahead and leave about 1 inch around the perimeter. After the sauce, I gather all of my toppings. These are all the toppings that my kids requested: cheese, ham, sausage, pepperoni, and bacon. Feel free to put whatever toppings of your choice on your pizza. I'm using mozzarella cheese here. And again, I'm taking the cheese and putting it all the way to the edges of the pizza to make sure that I'm not having any pizza crust. I really do enjoy pizza nights. It's great bonding for the family. The children love being able to flatten the dough themselves and get their hands in there and put their own toppings on their pizza. Pizza night for us is more than just about eating pizza, but also just spending time together and just having fun. I love being able to create memories for my children. I do have 8 children, and so pizza nights are always fun. We do movies, pizza, and it's always a great time. After I put all the toppings on the pizza, I just let it rest for about 15 minutes while the oven preheats. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees, and I like to bake mine for about 15 to 18 minutes. For the last 2 to 3 minutes, I like to put it on broil so that the toppings can get nice and crispy on top. Here is the finished pizza. The full recipe will be in the description down below. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Thank you for watching,